There's no independent Palestinian state ever existed before Israel. There was never a Palestinian state ever before Israel, ever.
Okay.
Well, answer my question. You can't answer my question with a question. Do you believe that?
Why not? I've answered your question, but you just want to have a narrow definition of how it's responded, because you've used your platform to spread debunked claims like beheaded Israeli babies, infants burned alive in their cribs, lies that were weaponized to justify the destruction of Gaza.
Are you saying that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying that.
This land belonged to the Jewish people long before 1948.
And under this context of siege, blockade, and genocide, this is just a silly argument to bring up to begin with. You cannot have peace without justice.
Dr. Phil just got cooked harder than a microwave popcorn by Nerdeen, and let's be real, he deserves every kernel of it. Welcome back to my channel, y'alls. I'm your host Z, and today we're diving headfirst into one of the most heated confrontations you'll ever witness. Nerdeen absolutely demolishing Dr. Phil's outdated talking points, while Dr. Phil can't seem to let go of October 7th, treating it like an ultimate reset button for every single freaking argument. Nerdeen is gonna hit him with facts sharper than his hairline. 18 months have passed, but Dr. Phil is still looping on October 7th like it's an old Spotify playlist. But don't worry, folks, we're not here to listen to Dr. Phil's spin circles. We're here to unpack how Nerdeen dismantled myths about Zionism, genocide, and settler colonialism faster than your Wi-Fi disconnects during a Zoom meeting. Buckle up, because this ride ahead is spicy, insightful, and probably gonna get me demonetized. Smash that subscribe button to help fight my YouTube retention struggles, or I'll have to resort to reaction videos of cats debating politics. Let's go.
So let's start right there. What is it that you feel like needs to be debunked?
First of all, I think the definition of Zionism that you used is not accurate to the Palestinian experience. To us, and really through the study of settler colonialism, we understand that Zionism is a settler colonial ideology that justifies the genocide and occupation of Palestine. It's not about Jewish safety. It's about land theft, apartheid, US-backed militarism. Palestinians are labeled terrorists for resisting occupation, while Zionists burn villages, kill tens of thousands of children, and get US funding to do so. This claim that Zionism is about self-determination is false, because it only exists through forced displacement, military occupation, and genocide. It's a system of oppression, just like apartheid South Africa and like all settler colonial projects. So when I call for an end to the establishment of the state of Israel, this is an anti-colonial position rather than a call for harm. Ending Israel as a political structure does not mean harm to Jewish people. It means dismantling an oppressive system, just as apartheid South Africa was dismantled. Peace comes when colonized people have justice and self-determination. And if Israel, just like any other country's existence,
Was October 7th part of that?
Sorry?
Was October 7th part of the dismantling of the structure?
That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm saying that Palestinians have a right to fight against the colonial apparatus that is killing us. Now,
Was October 7th part of that
I'm not here to
fight?
speak to that.
Well, I'm
Sorry.
asking you the question. Was October 7th part of that? What is your position on October 7th?
I'm not here to comment on a military strategy of any armed group in Palestine. That's not, my place and what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that no matter how Palestinians resist, it's going to be labeled terrorism. We don't have a state. The U.S. continuously blocks that. Israel continues to swallow up our land. So, any way that Palestinians resist, they're labeled terrorists.
Well, was October 7th resistance?
Was the Nakba, was the genocide of Palestinians, do you explain that as Zionism?
Well, answer my question. You can't answer my question with a question. Do you believe
Why
that
not?
October 7th was resistance, or do you believe it was an attack?
I've answered your question, but you just want to keep, you want to have a narrow definition of how it's responded, because you've used your platform to spread debunked claims like beheaded Israeli babies, infants burned alive in their cribs, lies that were weaponized to justify the destruction of Gaza. these falsehoods remain on your website, even after being disproved. But when there's actual
Nerdeen, it
evidence,
hasn't
bring
been
those
disproved.
on.
I have seen the footage myself. I have been in the kibbutz. I have been
Well,
there and
even
talked to the
White
people,
House
and I
had
have
to
seen,
retract Biden saying
I have
that those
actually
images
seen the
exist.
videos of the Hamas invaders on their own body cams. I have seen that. This isn't hearsay. It's
Why did the
absolute
White
fact.
House walk back the claims that Biden made about seeing those same images?
I'm sorry?
Why did the White House walk back the claims about Biden seeing those same images months and months ago? Have you seen the footage of tens of thousands of Palestinian children decimated, evaporated, charred? Why aren't you speaking about those
I
people?
absolutely have seen footage of Palestinian children losing their lives. And I'll ask you the question.
They were killed. They didn't mysteriously lose their lives. They were killed by Israeli missiles funded by the United States.
Absolutely, there were Palestinian lives that were lost when Israel reacted to the attack on October 7th. And those missiles were sent because Hamas attacked on October 7th and then went and hid cowardly among the civilians in Palestine. I hate that Palestinian lives have been lost. I hate that children in Palestine have been killed by missiles that have been sent to come after the terrorists that have attacked Israel. There's no question about that. That is terrible. I hate that that has happened.
You could take your same argument and flip it, on its head in the reverse. The establishment of the state of Israel happened through the genocide and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people, something that my grandparents personally faced. And so, you could say that anything that happened thereafter was also a reaction to that. I mean, if you're going to justify it, in one way, then we can, use that same argument to justify, anything on the Palestinian side that you're against as well. So, I think it's important for us to go back to the root cause of the issue, because I do believe that Palestinian Muslims, Christians, Jews, all different faiths, different backgrounds can live together in peace as they did prior to the establishment of the state of Israel. And I think any state that needs to commit genocide in order to exist, that needs to occupy people, that needs to imprison 10,000 Palestinians, that needs to use rape as a weapon of war, which, has been used against Palestinians for decades with silence from Western media, simply doesn't deserve to exist, especially when it needs constant U.S. funding.
Are you saying that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying that. And according to the Raphael Lemkin Institute for Genocide, Raphael Lemkin is the person who coined the term genocide, was also Jewish, that yes, it falls under the definition of genocide.
Well, let me tell you, if they're committing genocide in Gaza, then why are they warning people in Gaza that they are getting ready to do an attack in an area so they have an opportunity to clear the area before they drop missiles in that area? Why are they warning them? They're not committing genocide there. Their stated, demonstrated intent to defeat Hamas, not to eradicate Palestinians. They provide food, they provide water, they provide aid, they allow for evacuations, they warn civilians before airstrikes so they can minimize harm. And
they don't allow for evacuations.
They absolutely allow. They warn them ahead of time, and Hamas keeps them from leaving.
Gaza is the most densely populated region in the entire world, if not, or one of the most densely populated regions. So this is just false that they, have this opportunity to leave.
Does Hamas embed themselves within civilian areas? Does Hamas embed themselves in civilian areas using human shields?
I'm not a spokesperson for any organization, so I'm not sure why you're asking me, about Hamas. But if you're going to use the human shields argument, then you can say Israel used human shields by having people live on a border of a place that they are that they have been blockaded, that they have put under siege for 2 decades. So when you say they give them water or allow them water, they're the ones restricting water. They're the ones who made Palestinians live in a non-contiguous Swiss cheese-like structure where Palestinians in Jerusalem, the West Bank, Palestinian citizens of what is now called Israel cannot see each other. So
If you don't want to discuss strategy, then let's just talk about results. You say that Israel is powerful, they have weapons, they're backed by the United States, and they're committing genocide in Gaza. Between 1990 and 2022, the population of Palestine has increased from 1.9 million to 5 million. That's a growth of 155% in 32 years. Does that
why don't
sound
you
like
put up the
genocide?
definition of genocide, Dr. Phil?
Does
Put up
that
the
sound like
definition of
genocide?
Put up the definition of genocide, because it's not just about completely killing every single person in Palestine to be calling it a genocide. It's the intent to kill people. It's the intent to destroy a nation or group by destroying their political institutions, their social institutions, their way of life. And this is what Israel's been doing to us. So I'm not even, I would go as far to say that it hasn't just been a genocide for the last 18 months. Palestinian people have been facing a genocide since the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948.
This land belonged to the Jewish people long before 1948. But I'm glad that you brought that up, because in 1948, if we're talking about the rule of law, you're quite right. Because in 1948, there was an establishment and it was accepted by Israel, but it was rejected by Palestine. They have had numerous opportunities to have a two-state solution since at least the 1940s.
Why would Palestinians accept giving 51% of our land to 6% of the population that was newly immigrated at the time? Why would anyone accept settler colonialism? We fought against British colonialism. We fought even against the Ottoman Empire. Why would anybody accept willingly to be colonized?
So what do you want to happen? What do you want to happen? The Palestinians have rejected a two-state solution on 13 different occasions beginning in 1937 with the Peel Commission, the UN Partition Plan. I can go on up through and including 2020. So what do you want to happen?
I believe that one democratic state where people of all different religions can live together in peace, as they did prior to the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, where you are not granted supremacy based on your religion. And I believe that the indigenous people of Palestine, should be repatriated, should be given the right of return as stipulated in UN Resolution 194, which none of these solutions that you just posited, in these two-state solutions allows that, as an option. I believe that there must be reparations for the Palestinian people who've lost their land, who've been languishing in refugee camps and neighboring Arab countries for decades, for over 75 years at this point. And those who wish to live peacefully among their neighbors, who wish to be part of the Palestinian nation building project, can continue to do so. We even have Jewish people in my group within our lifetime. So,
how many Jews live in Gaza now?
Well, if you're going to bring that up, Israel is actually the one who decided to withdraw their population. So,
yeah.
And under this context of siege, blockade, and genocide, this is just a silly argument to bring up to begin with. You cannot have peace without justice.
Okay, and Jews have lived in the land for over 3,000 years despite conquest and exiles. Modern Israel is legally recognized. It's the San Marino Conference, the UN international treaties. They've never abandoned their claim to the land, ever. And there's no independent Palestinian state ever existed before Israel. There was never a Palestinian state ever before Israel, ever.
Okay, well, Ireland and Italy also didn't exist up until like the 20th century. The concept of nation states is fairly new. Palestinian people existed. And yes, the people in that region, there were Jewish people, Christian people. Palestine is a land of, the Abrahamic religions. A lot of those Jewish people actually converted to Islam. If you look at the genealogy of a lot of Palestinians.
Are you saying that Israel is an apartheid state?
Because genetic testing is actually illegal in Israel.
Are you saying that Israel is an apartheid state?
Israel's beyond an apartheid state. It's
Really?
a settler colonial genocidal state.
Really? Then why are there equal rights for Arab citizens in Israel?
There aren't equal rights. There's over 51 discriminatory laws against Palestinian citizens of Israel, and you're excluding millions of Palestinians by even just focusing on them. You're also excluding Palestinians in exile like myself and Palestinians who are in refugee camps scattered across the world in exile, unable to exercise their right of return.
And that's a wrap, folks. Let's face it, Dr. Phil just took an intellectual beating so severe he's probably searching Amazon for burn ointment as we speak. Here's why Nerdeen was absolutely spot on. First, she accurately points out Zionism historically aligns with settler colonialism. It's about land, occupation, and power dynamic, not some kumbaya self-determination moment that Dr. Phil was awkwardly pushing. Secondly, Nerdeen nailed it when exposing the hypocrisy around labeling Palestinian resistance as terrorism while ignoring decades of well-documented Israeli atrocities. Dr. Phil got roasted also because he tried repeatedly to reset the conversation to October 7th like it's an undo button on Microsoft Word. Buddy, we're 18 months deep. Move on. Honestly, watching Dr. Phil desperately cling to debunk stories of beheaded babies on his platform in the past was more uncomfortable than catching your grandparents swiping right on Tinder. Dr. Phil, my man, it might be time to retire your Zionist talking points along with the mustache. Thanks for tuning in, folks. I'm your host Z, and if you enjoyed watching Logic Roast's outdated propaganda, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Catch you all in the next one.